SKOL Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fan, things are getting really strange in Minnesota right now. A defense that suddenly stopped taking the ball away, a key player being thrown under the spotlight, a TV analyst breaking down the offense's mechanics play by play, a rival limping into the injury report, and a veteran from this offense heading back to a very familiar field treating this rivalry game like all or nothing. And there is a final storyline nobody saw coming. But before we dig into every detail of this breakdown, let me talk to you real quick. Hit that subscribe button on the channel. It does not cost you anything. It is free, and it keeps this bleacher conversation alive. Drop a like, too, because that tells YouTube to push this talk to even more fans all over the world. Let me be straight with you. This Vikings defense has stopped taking the ball away, and it is costing them games. Last season, they were living off takeaways. It felt like a fumble or interception always showed up to save the night for the Purple Faithful. Now it feels like every bounce goes the other way, and when this team does not win the turnover battle, the scoreboard bill comes in heavy. Since Kevin O'Connell arrived, the stat that screams win or loss louder than any other for this team is turnover margin. When they at least break even in that fight, the record looks like a playoff contender's. But when they lose the ball battle, it turns into that same old movie, loss after loss, and the fan base's patience explodes. This year, they have already played 6 games where they lost that category, with a 1-5 record in those. Just saying that, you can feel the blood pressure rise. To be honest with you, you cannot throw all of this on the offense, even with Carson Wentz and J.J. McCarthy handing out way too many picks. The defense, which last season led the league in takeaways, now looks way less aggressive. There have been 9 takeaways all year, and 5 of them came in that blowout of the Bengals. So in 9 other games, only 4 takeaways. 4. That is way too little for a team that wants to dream big and talk about owning the division without flinching. And only here you get this straight-up Vikings fan read, no press conference filter. Losing Cameron Bynum hurts. He had a nose for the ball, a pure playmaker. But it is not just that. This year, the team spends more time trailing on the scoreboard, opponents run more, throw less, and the chances for picks and strip sacks, those game-flipping plays, just dry up. Last season, it felt like everyone came out throwing against them. Now, teams are running right at this defense, burning clock and taking the ball out of the secondary's hands. And there is still the bad luck factor, right? Deflected passes that fall right in the receiver's lap, fumbles that bounce on the turf and somehow roll back to the wrong jersey, almost pick sixes that stay in the almost column by half a second. Against the Bears, it honestly looked like the ball was magnetized to that orange uniform. The Vikings arrive, tip, touch, but never finish the play. It wears you down, it frustrates you, and it shows how close they are, painfully close. O'Connell keeps preaching the same plan. Keep punching at the ball, swarm it with a bunch of purple helmets, force mistakes until that so-called law of averages finally flips their way. But for the fan base, the mental clock is speeding up. You look at the standings and think, this harvest has to show up now. There is no time to wait forever. And the test comes immediately against a Packers team that almost never gives the ball away. 7 turnovers all season. So if this defense wants to prove it can still decide games, this is the perfect stage. Lambeau, the rival, a season on the edge. Drop your take in the comments if you think this defense can flip the switch and become that takeaway machine again. Stick around, because the next story cranks up the heat on the guys who are already feeling the pressure inside that locker room. You know what is really burning in everybody's mind right now? J.J. McCarthy. The kid is just starting his real NFL journey, running an offense loaded with weapons, and there are already people talking like he is a lost cause. He barely has 7 starts, and folks are questioning whether the draft pick was worth it. Take a breath. The pressure is massive, I get it, but people are stacking way too much drama in a really short stretch. His start has been rough. Nobody here is pretending otherwise. Low completion rate, the offense stalling on 3rd down, late reads on some snaps. When you have elite receivers and you are still just a shade over 50% completions, the criticism comes fast. For a team that expects to be fighting in January, that stings the pride of everybody who defend the North every Sunday. Then the insiders jump in and the noise turns into a full-blown storm. Dan Orlovsky shows up pointing at his feet, base, shoulders, calling them technical details, fixable stuff. Mike Florio is already floating the idea of bringing in Mac Jones. And now Deanna Rossini is asking whether JJ will even remain the Vikings quarterback next season. To be honest with you, that crosses the line for me. There is a big difference between demanding growth and pushing the guy out the door. Kevin O'Connell always repeats that most of the time, it is the organization that fails the quarterback, not the other way around. He talks about the cement drying, about turning practice into habit, about repeating fundamentals until they are automatic. It does not sound like empty coach talk. You can tell he still believes in the McCarthy project. It is true the team put itself in this spot. They let Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones walk, did not bring in a high-end veteran, and went all in on a kid coming off a serious injury without many real reps. Right now it looks like a huge gamble. And I understand anyone thinking they really should have had a stronger plan B. Honestly, I think that sometimes too. But there is another side to this. Everybody was praising JJ in the offseason, his work ethic, his demeanor, how he won over the locker room and impressed veterans. Now that things are tough, people grab those old quotes and turn them into memes like the franchise was naive. The internet loves that kind of storyline. But quarterback development is almost never a straight line, especially for a guy who basically lost his entire first year. As a fan, what I want to see in the next few weeks is simple. Less talk about does he stay or go, and more proof on the field that he is adjusting. Cleaner footwork, quicker reads, the ball coming out with conviction to his top targets. If he shows that curve, he will calm down even the angriest voices in the stands. Drop your thoughts in the comments if you agree or if you are already out on him. Only here you get this Bleacher View Vikings fan breakdown. No sugarcoating. If the front office wants to bring in competition, fine. Nobody is against raising the bar. But throwing in the towel with so little sample size would just be another mistake by this franchise. Stay to the end, because the last one hits hard, and the next story dives deep into JJ's mechanics, dragging back a ghost a lot of people would rather forget. There is something that really gets to me in this whole JJ saga. The conversation turned into a social media soap opera, and in the middle of that, the good analysis sometimes gets lost. Then Dan Orlovsky comes in, grabs the all-22 coaches film, and starts breaking down what is really happening with the kid's arm. This is not about he forgot how to throw. It is his feet, his base, his hips, his shoulders. Boring stuff to some people, but crucial. He basically translated into quarterback language what Kevin O'Connell had already been saying. The problem starts down low, on the ground. His step is too long, his base way too wide for a guy who is not that tall, his back leg locked, his shoulders flat instead of slightly tilted. When that happens, the ball either dies short or sails way too high. And we, watching from the stands, just see an ugly miss and think, how did he blow that throw? I have had that reaction more times than I want to admit watching the Vikings. To be honest with you, what Orlovsky describes is that old battle between torque and balance. JJ has that big leg whip, that violent lower body snap that generates a ton of power and rotation. O'Connell gets that, but he wants a middle ground, about 80% power, a steadier base, friendlier balls that let receivers catch and run. And the head coach himself admits that right now, on some snaps, JJ's body is out of sync. Upper body going one way, base going another. Then comes the ghost that makes Vikings Nation shiver. Christian Ponder and the famous easily correctable. Remember that? Every press conference, it was the same. It is just a footwork detail. It is easily correctable. It sounded like a script. That wore the fan base out because the so-called detail never went away. Hearing people talk about feet, shoulders, and base again gives flashbacks to a lot of longtime fans, myself included. I will admit it. I heard easily correctable and had to take a deep breath before moving on. The context, though, is different. Ponder had already logged a good amount of snaps when the technical excuses started piling up. JJ has just 5 games, trying to change an entire way of playing that he has used his whole life. He even said it himself. It is almost like reprogramming the brain, rewiring old connections. It is not easy, and it is not quick, but it is not a guaranteed failure either. Orlovsky made it clear he sees all of this as fixable if the work is consistent, repeated, and relentless. Only here you get that Vikings fan perspective, remembering old scars but looking at the present with a cooler head. What I want as a fan is to see whether those corrections start to show already against Green Bay. Tighter base, better shoulder tilt, the ball coming out with less chaos. Jump in the comments if you feel that Ponder flashback too, or if you think people are overreacting. Stick around because the next story is all about who will actually be healthy enough to handle a banged up but still dangerous Packers team. Look, when I see an injury report like this, I get a little torn. On one hand, it is a relief to see the Vikings roster relatively healthy going into Lambeau week. On the other hand, I have learned that a beat-up rival is never a guarantee of an easy game, especially not Green Bay. Those guys seem to enjoy ruining our night even when they are limping around the field. Jonathan Greenard and Will Fries were the 2 players who did not participate in Wednesday's practice. Greenard is still dealing with that shoulder, trying to get back after missing the Bears game. Fries just showed up with a knee issue, and of course it hits him. the only starting offensive lineman who had made it through the season untouched so far. To be honest with you, whenever I see the offensive line getting shuffled, my blood pressure spikes automatically. Yes, I can already picture the pocket collapsing before the snap. The good news is that everyone else was listed as a full participant, including Ryan Kelly getting close to returning. If he is cleared and Fries can go, we might finally see that ideal offensive line that has only existed on paper since the start of the year. If Fries cannot handle it, Blake Brandel probably slides over to right guard. If things go sideways for more than one guy, you start seeing names most fans have not even memorized yet. And that, my friend, is a heart test for anyone who loves watching trench play. Meanwhile, the other side looks like a clinic. Josh Jacobs did not practice, and we are talking about a guy with 11 touchdowns, the centerpiece of their offense. Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed are already out on injured reserve, and the current wide receiver group is all limited. Watson, Daubs, Wicks, Golden, each of them dealing with something. Add Nate Hobbs and Key Walker not practicing, and you are looking at a Packers team far from full strength. Of course, Jordan Love is on the report but practiced fully, so do not expect any freebies. As a fan, I look at this picture and think, if you do not take advantage of a rival this patched up, especially after 2 heavy home losses, you basically shut down any real talk of a turnaround. A game at Lambeau always carries weight, snow or not, but you cannot leave that stadium regretting a wasted chance because the other team showed up without half its starting offense. Only here you get this Vikings fan angle, reading the medical report like it is a conference championship call sheet. Drop a comment if you agree that a relatively healthy Vikings roster facing a physically questionable Packers squad turns this into more than just a big game. It is a moral must-win. Inside the locker room, weeks like this usually flip the message. It stops being, "Let us see what happens," and becomes, "There is no excuse to walk out of here with a loss." If this group truly buys into that, the energy on the field changes fast. Stay tuned because the last story hits right in the emotions. Aaron Jones heading back to his old home, calling this one an all-or-nothing shot to keep any playoff flame alive. Man, if there is one kind of game that really messes with your head, it is when a former rival star comes back in your colors. Aaron Jones Sr. in purple going into Lambeau with the season hanging by a thread is the kind of scenario that, if you had said it 10 years ago, people would have laughed in your face. Now it is real, it is urgent, and honestly, it is emotional as hell. For a lot of people, this kind of reunion pulls up memories of losses, tight games, and playoff pushes that slipped away right on that frozen field. The team is sitting at 4-6, with 2 brutal home losses fresh in everyone's mind, and many fans have already closed the playoff book. He has not. He keeps hammering the same message. Every week is a must-win, but without panicking. It is must-win football without trying to play hero ball on every snap. To be honest with you, that is exactly the kind of leadership this locker room needed after such a roller coaster. I will admit it. I am way less calm than he is when I watch this offense on 3rd down. Aaron knows Lambeau as well as anyone. He spent years carrying the ball on that turf, feeling the cold, hearing their crowd roar. Now he walks back in wearing purple, calling this game a full circle moment, almost looking at his own journey and saying, "I know where I came from and I know what I still have to give." That matters. That spreads confidence through the rest of the offense, especially for younger guys who have never lived this rivalry at full volume. The part that hits me hardest is how he wraps his arms around J.J. McCarthy. After that Bears game, with mistakes, a fumble, pressure from every direction, he goes up to the kid and says, "I am proud of you." Proud of what? Proud that he did not hide, that he went back on the field, that he kept trying to win the game. Only here you get this Vikings fan angle from someone who has seen a lot of players shrink after a big mistake. JJ gets hit, but he keeps coming back. That matters a lot inside a locker room. Aaron's message is crystal clear. Accountability? Yes. Witch hunt? No. He sees his quarterback owning his mistakes, saying, "I cannot do that." Going back to the sideline to fix things, asking for more reps, buying into the process. That kind of posture, combined with a veteran who knows both sides of this rivalry, is pure fuel in a game that could define the life of this season. Drop a comment if you feel like his presence might be the spark this offense has been missing. As a fan, this is how I see it. This is not just another Vikings versus Packers matchup. It is one of their former stars leading our offense as it tries to find itself in a stadium that has been the backdrop for a lot of our pain. If this team really buys into that every week is must win but stay composed mentality, things can still get interesting. Stick around because in the final wrap-up I am going to tie all of this together and say, without sugarcoating, what kind of team the Vikings really are right now. Take a deep breath for a second. Between a defense that stopped stealing possessions, a questioned quarterback, mechanics under the microscope, a patched-up roster, and Aaron Jones going back to his old home calling this a must-win, the truth is this team still has not decided what it wants to be. Either it flips the switch now, or the 2025 season becomes just another bitter chapter in this purple history book. I still see a path to a late push, but the margin for error has been gone for a while. Drop a comment. This space belongs to everyone who lives the purple faithful life. Just when we think we have seen everything, something new pops up, so do not zone out now. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go.